The young and the restless spoilers in the dimly lit confines of an abandoned warehouse that had been converted into a battleground for power and control, tensions had reached a fever pitch. What was once a carefully orchestrated plan between Phyllis and Sharon had unraveled into chaos, a collision of wills fueled by defiance, betrayal, and a dangerous hunger for authority. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and the undercurrent of impending violence, as the two women, once aligned by a mutual understanding, now found themselves at odds. Phyllis had been the one to initiate the breach from their prior agreement. In a move that shocked even the most hardened insiders of their secretive circle, she began to act contrary to what she and Sharon had meticulously planned. It wasn't just a minor deviation. Phyllis was challenging the established order, daring to assert her independence in a game where every action was supposed to adhere to a strict code. Her actions, deemed reckless by those who knew the stakes, had already set off a chain reaction of unwanted confrontations. Sharon, on the other hand, had always prided herself on a hardened resolve forged in years of surviving kidnappings and overcoming life-threatening challenges. With a voice that carried both authority and a hint of disdain, she declared that she would no longer be constrained by the expectations of others. "I'm going to do what I want," Sharon snapped, her tone laced with both defiance and a cold certainty. "I don't have to care about anyone's opinions or follow anyone's orders." Her words cut through the tension like a knife, leaving no room for negotiation. It was a declaration of war, one that signaled the beginning of an inevitable downfall, one that might just force Phyllis to pay dearly for her apparent defiance. The tension escalated rapidly. In a flash of fury, Phyllis seized a nearby chair, a crude weapon symbolizing her desperate bid to enforce her authority. With eyes blazing with anger, she hurled the chair towards the center of the room, the impact reverberating through the cold, empty space. But even this dramatic act of rebellion, as violent and uncontrolled as it was, seemed insufficient in the eyes of Sharon. For Sharon, the stakes were far higher. The rules of the game, as dictated by the elusive master of ceremonies who held the reins of power, were clear. Any action that broke the established order was not just a personal transgression, it was a death sentence for both of them. "Stop this madness, Phyllis!" Sharon roared, lunging forward with a determination that belied her years of brutal experience. With a strength that came from a lifetime of survival, she grabbed Phyllis by the throat, her fingers tightening in a vice-like grip. "If you keep this up, we'll both die," she bellowed, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. Her words were not just a plea for calm, they were a desperate command meant to remind Phyllis of the very real dangers that loomed over them. The rule was unambiguous: any attempt to seize power by force would invoke the wrath of the one who governed their twisted game, a force known only to those who dared to cross the line. Yet, as Sharon's grip tightened and her admonitions rang out, Phyllis's defiance only grew stronger. She struggled against the hold, her eyes wild with a mix of anger and determination. "You think you're the only one who's suffered? You think I haven't been through hell?" Phyllis spat out, her voice trembling with both fury and the scars of past battles. It was a cry born of pain, a declaration that she was no longer willing to be subjugated by anyone, not even someone as battle-hardened as Sharon. The struggle quickly escalated into a full-blown brawl. Fists flew, and the sounds of grunts and the harsh impact of bodies colliding filled the air. The two women moved with a ferocity that spoke of years of accumulated bitterness and unresolved conflict. Each blow was not merely a physical attack but an eruption of long-suppressed resentments. In the midst of the chaos, the rules of their clandestine game were all but forgotten, replaced by a primal drive to dominate and, perhaps, destroy the other. In the heat of the fray, Sharon's anger reached a boiling point. "You want to be the boss of this room? Then you must follow the orders," she hissed between strikes, her tone both commanding and accusatory. But Phyllis, caught up in the adrenaline of battle, refused to back down. Her stubborn defiance was a dangerous dance, a dance where every misstep could lead to irreversible consequences. The rules set by the unseen orchestrator of their fate loomed like a dark cloud overhead, a constant reminder that any deviation from the plan could mean a fatal outcome. Sharon's experiences, marked by countless harrowing escapes and narrow survivals, had taught her one unyielding lesson: in their world, discipline was the only shield against chaos. She had seen too many lives shattered by impulsiveness and disobedience. "If you continue like this, you're going to pay dearly, Phyllis," she roared, her voice laced with both warning and regret. Her words were a stark reminder of the precarious balance they maintained, a balance that could shatter with one wrong move. Phyllis's retort was as fierce as it was defiant. "I'm sick of being told what to do by someone who thinks they know everything," she screamed, her voice echoing with the weight of her own struggles and the pain of being controlled. The room itself seemed to vibrate with the intensity of their emotions, each sound and movement a testament to the unraveling of an alliance that had once promised mutual support. Amidst the swirling chaos, the rules of the game, the ones set by the mysterious mastermind, began to loom large in both their minds. It wasn't merely a fight for personal dominance anymore. It was a fight for survival under a regime where the slightest misstep could trigger catastrophic consequences. Sharon's warning that their actions could lead to their demise wasn't an empty threat, it was a prophecy of the violent retribution that awaited those who dared to defy the established order. Yet even in the throes of combat, the realization of what was at stake began to seep into their consciousness. The physical struggle was a manifestation of deeper, more complex conflicts, a battle for control, a desperate grasp for independence, and the fear of being overpowered by forces beyond their control. Sharon, with her hard-earned wisdom from years of surviving abduction and other unspeakable horrors, knew that they were treading on a thin line, a line that, if crossed, would lead to ruin. The clash of wills between Phyllis and Sharon was more than a mere physical altercation, it was a war of philosophies. On one side stood Phyllis, fueled by a burning desire to reclaim her autonomy and assert her right to decide her own fate. On the other, Sharon represented the grim reality of their situation, insisting that obedience to the rules was the only way to ensure their survival in a world governed by ruthless power plays. The bitter irony was that both women, scarred by their pasts and determined to shape their futures, were caught in a tragic impasse, a crossroads where loyalty, ambition, and the specter of death intertwined. As the battle raged on, the chaos in the room reached a crescendo. Chairs were shattered, walls bore the marks of their fury, and the very ground seemed to tremble under the force of their conflict. Neither woman was willing to yield, and in each violent exchange lay a history of pain and betrayal that had driven them to this breaking point. Sharon, in her desperation, tried once more to impose order by force, her voice a mix of command and sorrow. "You must listen to the rules. We cannot let our personal vendettas endanger us all." But even as she spoke, her eyes betrayed the profound regret of having to confront a comrade who was once a trusted ally. In that charged moment, the underlying truth of their world was laid bare. In a realm where every action was weighed against the strict dictates of an unseen authority, personal freedom was a luxury that came at a steep price. The battle between Phyllis and Sharon was a microcosm of the broader struggle for control, a struggle where the cost of defiance was measured not in mere words, but in blood, pain, and the haunting possibility of death. As the violent encounter began to wane, the room was left in disarray, a physical representation of the shattered trust and broken alliances that had defined the conflict. Both Phyllis and Sharon, battered and bruised, found themselves standing at a crossroads. The question that now loomed large was whether their battle was merely a desperate cry for freedom or a harbinger of the total collapse of the delicate order that had long kept their dangerous world in balance. In the aftermath, as silence slowly descended upon the ruined space, each woman was left to confront the inevitable consequences of their actions. The rules of the game, the ones enforced by a shadowy figure whose authority was absolute, remained a constant reminder of the peril that awaited them if they continued to stray from the path. For Sharon, the memory of her many escapes and the hard lessons learned from a life steeped in captivity served as both a shield and a scar. For Phyllis, the price of defiance was yet to be paid, and the echoes of their violent clash would haunt her for a long time to come. The future of their fragile alliance, and indeed the survival of both, hung in the balance. As the darkness of the night gave way to the uncertain light of dawn, one undeniable truth emerged. In a world where loyalty was forged in fire and trust was a commodity as scarce as mercy, every choice, every act of defiance carried the potential to reshape destinies and unleash consequences far beyond the confines of a single room. Ultimately, the clash between Phyllis and Sharon was more than a battle for control. It was a reflection of the human struggle to assert individuality in the face of overwhelming forces. It was a testament to the high cost of independence, the price of rebellion, and the unyielding reality that in their perilous game, rules were not mere suggestions, they were lifelines that, if broken, could very well lead to their demise. As both women retreated to nurse their wounds, physical, emotional, and otherwise, the question remained, would they ever be able to reconcile their differences and find a way to coexist in a world that demanded absolute conformity, or were they doomed to be forever trapped in a cycle of violence and retribution? Only time would tell if redemption was possible in a realm where the scars of the past were as indelible as the promise of a new beginning. This narrative, blending explosive action with deep-seated emotion and raw determination, captures the escalating conflict between Phyllis and Sharon. Their fierce battle is not merely about physical dominance but about the underlying struggle for power, survival, and the courage to face a future dictated by rules that, if broken, leave no room for mercy. In a secluded control room, far removed from the chaos unfolding on the ground, a solitary figure sat before an array of monitors. The overseer, a man whose face remained obscured by shadows and whose identity was known only by the whispered rumors among those trapped in this deadly game, observed the unfolding drama with cold detachment. His eyes, unblinking and calculating, followed every move of the combatants through the unyielding gaze of high-definition cameras. From his vantage point, he saw the raw, unfiltered truth. When people teeter on the brink between life and death, they lose all semblance of control. In that vulnerable state, every decision becomes a desperate bid for survival, a mistake he relished witnessing. On the main screen, the chaos between Sharon and Phyllis had reached a fever pitch. Each of them, in their own way, was clawing desperately at the reins of life. Sharon, whose past was etched with scars from abduction and unyielding hardship, fought not only for control but for a semblance of dignity. Phyllis, on the other hand, was driven by a turbulent mix of rage, defiance, and a will to reclaim power over her destiny. Their struggle was more than a mere physical confrontation. It was an existential battle, a contest to redefine their identities in a world where the rules of existence had been rewritten by a mysterious authority. The overseer's lips curled into a slight, imperceptible smile as he watched them. Everything was unfolding exactly as he had planned. The rules of his twisted game were simple yet brutally uncompromising. When one stands at the precipice between life and death, every instinct is stripped bare, and the true nature of a person is revealed. In that most precarious of moments, he believed, human beings become entirely predictable. And predictability, after all, was the cornerstone of control. But the overseer had an ulterior motive, one that would push the boundaries of both loyalty and morality. His voice, cool and detached, had already transmitted a secret condition to Phyllis. If she wished to survive the impending storm, she must kill Sharon. It was a command that defied any conventional logic of friendship or rivalry, a decree born of the overseer's belief that only through the ultimate betrayal could the purity of human desperation be laid bare. In his world, life was a currency traded in the ruthless marketplace of survival, and the price of existence was steep indeed. The room fell silent for a heartbeat as the overseer's gaze shifted from the screen to a wall lined with cryptic notes and surveillance data. His thoughts were as dark and intricate as the labyrinthine corridors of the facility where the game was being played out. He knew that Sharon and Phyllis were both survivors in their own right, each carrying burdens that had shaped them into hardened warriors. Yet, their methods of survival were destined to collide in a manner that could only end in bloodshed. Phyllis, caught in the crosshairs of destiny and desperate for self-preservation, now faced an unthinkable choice. Every fiber of her being screamed that killing Sharon was an abomination, a betrayal of everything she had once believed in. Sharon, with her fierce independence and unyielding spirit, had been both a confidant and a rival. Their bond, once a fragile alliance built on shared experiences of torment and survival, was now marred by the overseer's cruel edict. The stakes could not have been higher: defy the command and risk obliteration, or comply and be forever stained by the act of fratricide. In the thick of the unfolding conflict, Phyllis's inner turmoil became palpable. Her eyes, darting between the scattered remnants of the battleground and the distant echo of a past that no longer felt like her own, betrayed a deep-seated horror at the task imposed upon her. The overseer's order echoed in her mind like a relentless drumbeat: kill Sharon to live. Yet, in that command lay a paradox, a perverse twist that turned survival into a moral quagmire. Was the preservation of life worth the price of becoming a murderer? Could she reconcile the act of betrayal with the remnants of honor that still clung to her soul? Meanwhile, Sharon fought on with the fury of one who had been hardened by years of captivity and strife. Unaware of the secret mandate imposed upon her, she believed that the battle was simply one for freedom, a fight against the invisible chains that had long bound her. Every blow she delivered, every desperate maneuver to free herself from the clutches of fate, was a testament to her resilience. Yet, fate had conspired to place her in the path of a betrayal that was as inevitable as it was tragic. As the combat intensified, the overseer's voice resonated once more through the hidden speakers scattered around the facility, a chilling reminder of the rules that governed their existence. Remember, his disembodied tone intoned with ruthless finality, only one can emerge unscathed from this crucible. The time for mercy has long passed. The only path to survival is to embrace the sacrifice demanded by fate. His words, void of emotion, carried the weight of an immutable law, a law that even the strongest hearts could not defy. For a fleeting moment, time seemed to stand still. In that suspended silence, Phyllis's mind raced through memories of a life before the pain, a time when choices were not measured in lives lost and loyalties betrayed. She recalled moments of laughter, fleeting connections that once promised hope, and the quiet belief that redemption was possible even in the darkest of circumstances. But those memories were quickly overshadowed by the cold logic of the present. If she did not act, she would perish, and with her death, all the fragile bonds she had built would be irrevocably shattered. The overseer's gaze remained fixed on the monitors, watching as the struggle for survival reached its zenith. His satisfaction lay not in the destruction of his subjects, but in the raw demonstration of their vulnerabilities. He believed that when pushed to the brink, the human spirit would reveal its true face, a face marred by fear, ambition, and the desperate will to live. And in that revelation, he found a perverse beauty, a testament to the chaotic order of his carefully orchestrated game. As the final moments of the confrontation neared, Phyllis's resolve wavered on the precipice of decision. Every second stretched into an eternity as she weighed the unbearable cost of obedience against the haunting specter of guilt. The room, now a chaotic canvas painted with the scars of their battle, became a silent witness to her internal struggle. Would she succumb to the overseer's command, sealing her fate as a murderer in the eyes of the world, and perhaps her own soul? Or would she find a way to defy the imposed order, even if it meant facing a death far more terrible than any she had known? The question hung in the air, a ticking time bomb in the midst of the ruined space. The overseer, his eyes still unblinking behind the monitors, waited with a chilling calm. He knew that the decision Phyllis made would not only determine her own fate but also set in motion a cascade of events that could unravel the very fabric of the deadly game he so meticulously controlled. In the end, the overseer's mandate was not merely a command, it was a test of humanity's most profound dilemmas. The choice between life and death, between survival and morality, was laid bare before Phyllis in a way that few could ever imagine. And as the echoes of battle faded into a heavy silence, one truth remained undeniable. In a world governed by unseen forces and brutal edicts, every choice bore the indelible mark of sacrifice. Whether Phyllis would choose to kill Sharon, or find another path to defy the cruel rules of their existence, would forever redefine the boundaries between survival and damnation.